Chapter 5. In the morning, Samantha headed straight for the stables. Darhauer was standing at the entrance, blocking her way. Samantha rolled her eyes at him. Because of stunts like this, half the men in the palace nearly peed their pants when Darhauer looked in their direction. "Your Highness, if anything happens to you because of this horse, I will personally hunt down your green-eyed friend and disembowel him." Samantha pushed past him. "Oh, please, Darhauer, enough of the dramatics." She picked up a couple of apples from the apple barrel. In her stall, the new mare snorted nervously. The princess approached slowly, holding out one of the apples. The mare moved closer, sniffed it, and then ate it from her hand. She then sniffed around for more. Samantha stroked the horse's nose. "Good morning. How do you like your new home? Any problems? Complaints?" The horse nickered contentedly. "Well, that's good to hear, sweetheart. Now, if you ever do have any problems, you let me know. Samantha wants Roberta to be happy." Darhauer approached. "Roberta?" "Yes, Roberta. Are you going to disembowel him for the name as well?" Samantha blushed. "I shouldn't let a simple peasant affect me this much. But how can anyone who rides a horse that be simple?" She tried to push the useless thoughts from her mind. However much she enjoyed her time with Robbie, he could be nothing to her. Roberta would have to be the friend she wished for. She talked softly to and petted the horse for 10 minutes. She then presented her with another apple, which the mare ate eagerly. Samantha eased the bridle on and led the horse out of the stall. She continued to talk softly while one of the grooms saddled her. Roberta fidgeted when the man first approached, but settled down as Samantha cooed and stroked her. When the horse was saddled, Darhauer helped her mount. "Let the two of you get used to each other today, Your Highness. There'll be time for a full gallop later." Rolling her eyes, Samantha saluted in a military fashion. "Yes, Captain." Fully intending to ignore Darhauer, Samantha walked Roberta out of the stables. Followed as always by her bodyguard, she rode to the edge of the king's fields, where the open land spread out before her. "Let's go, girl." She gave the mare her head, and Roberta took off at a full gallop, moving so quickly it stole her breath. Roberta flew across the fields, faster than any horse she'd ever ridden. Samantha laughed as the wind blew through her hair, and Roberta soared over the first fence. She imagined Robbie and Wild Thing racing beside her. She rode far before she realized she'd left her bodyguards behind. "Soulless, curse it! They're killing the horses trying to find me!" She didn't want them to get in trouble with her father, so reluctantly she turned back. She reached the stables without seeing her guards. She dismounted and allowed Roberta to drink her fill at the water trough. She brushed back the strands of hair that had come loose from her braid. It would take her maids forever to untangle it. Vaughn came running out. His hair was mussed and full of straw as usual. "Can I get anything for you, Your Highness?" "Please fetch a brush and currycomb. Roberta's got quite a number of burrs." "At once, Your Highness." The boy ran to obey. She didn't think she'd ever see him walk. While she waited, she unsaddled the mare. "It was a nice run we had today, wasn't it, girl? We make a good pair." Roberta nickered. "Your tail's a mess, but don't worry. I'll fix it for you." When Vaughn returned with the grooming implement, she asked him to put the saddle away. She rubbed the horse down and then began disentangling the burrs. She heard a horse ride up and thought one of her bodyguards had finally found her. "Boy!" a voice yelled. "See to my horse at once!" She glanced behind her and saw instead of her bodyguard a minor count whose name she couldn't remember. "I wasn't aware His Majesty employed girls in his stables. No matter. Don't stand there like a gaping idiot. See to my horse." Samantha returned to Roberta's tale. "I'm a bit busy at the moment." "Busy? Get over here this instant, or I'll have you flogged." The princess continued combing Roberta's tail. "I don't think that's likely." Vaughn came running back out. When he saw the count, he bowed and reached for the horse's bridle. "Can I take your horse, my lord?" "No, you may not. She will do it." Samantha turned and saw the count pointing at her. She leaned back against Roberta's broad flank, keeping her face blank. "Her?" Vaughn gasped. "But, my lord!" "Yes, her, you idiot boy. She's been most insolent. Fetch the master of horse. I'll have a word with him." Vaughn just stood there with his mouth hanging open. "Do as he asks, Vaughn," Samantha commanded. Vaughn bowed and ran back inside. "You can stand to learn a few manners," Samantha said to the count. "It never hurts to treat underlings with respect." The Count turned purple with rage. "One more word from you, wench, and I'll have you on a spit." Vaughn came running back, closely followed by Darhauer. Darhauer glanced between the Count and the princess, and Samantha noticed a spark of amusement in his eyes. "Is there a problem, my lord?" The Count started to speak, but the princess interrupted. "I believe the Count wants me flogged for insolence." "Wants you flogged, your highness?" Darhauer raised his eyebrows and turned to the Count. "You're suggesting I flog the crown princess?" The Count gasped. "But she's not! But she can't be! Just like that!" At that moment, her bodyguards finally found her. The first jumped off his horse before it stopped. He put his hand on his sword and stepped between the princess and the Count. "Trouble, your highness." The other bodyguard closed beside the first. With a look of sheer panic, the Count dismounted and bowed low in the dust. "Your highness, forgive me. I swear I didn't know it was you. I meant no offense." "You certainly meant to offend someone. Your behavior was reprehensible." "Shall we arrest his lordship, your highness?" Her bodyguard with the icy blue eyes asked. Darhauer grunted. "I could flog him for you if you like, your highness." The Count turned the same shade as the dust beneath his feet. "Forgive me, your highness. I apologize most sincerely for my rudeness and submit myself to your mercy. If you grant it, never again will I treat another in the manner I displayed here today." "Based on your promise, I will grant you mercy. But if I ever hear of you breaking this promise, I'll have the master of the horse flog you." Darhauer gave the Count his make men piss in their pants look, and the Count pelled further. "I understand, your highness." Samantha dismissed the Count, and Darhauer chuckled. "You can be wicked, your highness." "May? Your glare was what nearly made him lose his bowels," she groaned. "I'd best run along. I have to dine with the court." As she walked towards the palace, the bodyguard who'd offered to arrest the Count said, "Your highness, you mustn't leave us behind. If Count Turney had been trouble, we might not have been there in time." Startled, Samantha looked at the guard. Her bodyguards never reprimanded her. They rarely said anything to her besides greetings. When she met the man's eyes, a chill went up her spine. They were the coldest eyes she'd ever seen. "Next time, Lieutenant Kalin, have Darhauer give you Demon." She hoped he'd break his neck when he tried to ride the horse. She wouldn't have stable hands and guards telling her what to do. When she started to turn away, he exploded into colors, pale blue and white. Instantly, she felt warm and protected. But the feeling had to be wrong. Holy Sulis, why does this keep happening? I must truly be mad. But even in her madness, she knew Kalin was absolutely loyal to her and would gladly die to defend her. When she reached her rooms, her maids informed her Lady Sheila had called on her. "Again? But she came yesterday." "Yes, but she didn't be seeing you yesterday, now did she?" Ardra said. "Your Highness, would it be so bad to have a friend?" Samantha shrugged as she got into her bath. Meeting Robbie had reminded her how truly lonely she was. Sheila had once been her friend, but Samantha no longer trusted her, not since the day she saw her colors. She'd been sitting with Sheila, talking about the various men at court. Samantha would name one, and Sheila would give her opinion and giggle. Suddenly the air around Sheila burst into green. Not the green of health and life she'd seen on Darhauer, but a putrid green. Sheila hated Samantha because she was jealous all the men at court flocked around the princess. Sheila only wanted to be her friend because of the prestige and power that came with it. Samantha had cried herself to sleep that night, and never again had she let one of the court ladies close enough to be a friend. But should I let my madness dictate my friendships? Perhaps I was wrong about Sheila. While her maids were busy doing the princess's hair, Lady Sheila returned. She bowed, and Samantha offered her a seat. Sheila was the perfect example of the court lady. She was blonde, with snow-white skin and blue eyes. Her face was smooth and heavily painted. She was tall, with a slender waist and very large breasts, which her low-cut gown displayed irritatingly. She was everything the princess was not. Sheila crossed her feet under her chair in a perfectly ladylike manner. "I hope you're feeling better today, Your Highness." Samantha forced her face into a court smile. "Much better. I'm afraid I overindulged at the ball and needed to rest. Forgive me if I have my maids work on my hair while we chat. You know how long it can take sometimes." "Of course, Your Highness. It took my maids ages to get my hair ready for the ball. But didn't you just have a marvelous time? With all those men wanting you, I don't know how you'll ever choose a consort. Duke Arbuthnot seems completely in love with you. Arbuthnot is only in love with himself and the idea of being king. You're welcome to him, or any of the others for that matter." Samantha didn't need the colors to sense Sheila's jealousy. Today it bothered her even more than it had in the past. "Sulis, mother of us all, why is it I can have any man except the one I want?" "Your Highness, you can't mean that. Surely there's somebody you favor." "No, there isn't," the princess answered too forcefully, and to her fury she found herself blushing. Sheila faked a laugh. "I knew it. Who is he? What does he have that Arbuthnot doesn't?" "He respects me. He talks to me like I have a brain." Samantha paused uncertainly. "I mean, there isn't anyone, but if there were, that's what he'd be like. Now, if you excuse me, I must finish dressing for dinner." After Sheila left, Ardra smiled shyly. "You met someone at the horse fair, didn't you, Your Highness?" Samantha sighed sadly. "Yes, but he's a peasant. He can't matter to me." Nola tried to hide his discomfort as Arbuthnot's servant met him in the entrance hall and led him to the Duke's office. Nola didn't know why the Duke had insisted they meet at his private residence. Nola felt a lot safer in the palace. As he neared the end of the corridor, he heard a woman crying, followed by a sharp slap. The servant paused outside the door. "Let me see them," the Duke said from within. Nola heard fabric tearing and the woman's quiet sobs. "Yes, she'll do nicely," the Duke continued. "Prepare her for me. I won't be long." The door opened, and Nola was appalled as Hearn, the Duke's bastard brother, dragged a coarsely dressed woman out of the room. The woman's face was tear-streaked and her hands tied behind her back. Her dress had been torn open so that her rather large breasts were prominently displayed. Nola couldn't help staring. The woman whimpered, and Hearn had the audacity to smirk. "I'm sorry, your lordship. These aren't for you." Hearn grabbed one of the women's breasts, causing her to cry out. "Although for the right price, I could find you some of your own to play with." The bastard laughed and dragged the woman away. "His Grace will see you now," the servant announced, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. Shaken, Nola entered the Duke's office. Arbuthnot was sitting behind the desk, drinking brandy. "Have a seat, Nola," the Duke commanded. Nola did so, but couldn't help looking back in the direction of the woman's cries. "Well?" the Duke asked, making no acknowledgement of the woman. Nola cleared his throat, trying to hide his discomfort. "Yes, well, it appears the princess does favor someone after all." "Who?" Arbuthnot's lips tightened. "That I don't know. Well, that is to say, Sheila couldn't get the name out of her Highness. But apparently he talks to the princess like she has a brain, which tells me nothing more than he needs a few brains himself. I need more, Nola." The Duke paused. "I'm sure you noticed my evening's entertainment. Did you notice the size of her breasts? Your daughter has a rather admirable set herself." "Just what are you insinuating?" Nola cried. "You don't want to disappoint me, Nola." The Duke stood. "Now, if you excuse me, I hate to keep a woman waiting." Hearn watched through a peephole as his brother stood over the naked woman. Arbuthnot had already taken her once, and was having a little fun with her before he took her again. Something the Count told his brother must have upset him, because Arbuthnot had bypassed the riding crop and gone straight for the cat-o'-nine. Hearn rubbed himself as the whip smacked down on the woman's breasts. Blood splattered the bedsheets, and the woman bucked and screamed. Hearn hoped his brother didn't kill the woman before Hearn got his turn. Arbuthnot took his time, but the woman was still breathing when his brother called him into the room. Arbuthnot was wrapping a dressing gown around himself. "When you're through with her, dispose of her in the usual manner. Then I have a job for you. Nola claims the princess has a favorite among her suitors. I want to know who." After dining with the court, King Solar returned to his chambers and lit the candles under the painting of Samantha. It was a profile of her sitting in her window and staring out. Solar knew it was tantamount to idolatry to love Samantha as deeply as he did, but she'd stolen his heart the moment she'd been placed in his arms. She'd found his finger and fallen asleep sucking on it. No act had ever elicited such tenderness from Solar. From that moment on, she was his child. No father could ever love a child more than he loved Samantha. Holy Mother, she's so beautiful. Solar could see hints of Samantha's mother in her eyes, mouth, and forehead. Fenella had been a pretty child, but so young he'd never have considered her for a moment if he hadn't been desperate for an heir. The priest had told him a young girl just entering puberty was his only hope, and they had been right in a manner far different than he'd anticipated. Although Solar never knew the name of the man who shared young Fenella's bed, he'd always been grateful for the gift the man had given him. It was regrettable he'd had to have his chancellor take care of the unfortunate. Solar looked at the crossed swords that hung on either side of Samantha's portrait, reminders of the brutal warfare that had secured the peace and stability of his realm. His parents' marriage had finally united the two rival nations of Korth and Lundia, but not all had approved. It had taken 15 more years to truly meld the two kingdoms. The process had cost him his parents, his younger brother, and all his close relatives. But the peace had now lasted for 50 years. More than anything, he wanted peace to outlive him. Samantha, at 17, was still far too young to take his place on the throne.